You've applied to hundreds of jobs. You tweak your resume, rewrite the bullet points, fix the format, but still nothing. And at some point, you stop thinking about the resume and you start wondering if you're the problem. The real reason you're getting ghosted is because of mistakes almost everybody makes, and no one tells you about it. So in this video, I'll show you secrets about what's really getting your resume rejected before it even gets read. And after reading thousands of resumes in my career and sitting in hiring meetings, I can tell you this is what will actually get you interviews. Secret number 1, managers hire safe pairs of hands. You probably assume hiring managers want the smartest, most qualified candidate with the most accomplished resume, but they don't. They just want someone who feels safe, someone who can step in and solve problems without creating more. Because most managers are already drowning in work. They're behind on deadlines, stressed about their own deliverables, and now on top of that, they have to hire too. They're looking for the person who they know won't make things worse, who will make their job easier. That means your resume has one job: make yourself look like a safe pair of hands. But most resumes do the opposite. They're vague, or they're just filled with buzzwords or keywords, and they read like a list of random tasks with no outcomes. And when a resume feels even a little risky, it gets rejected. Not because you aren't qualified, but because of how you presented yourself. So here's the fix. Every bullet on your resume should make you look like someone who's already done the job. You want to show recent, relevant, clear results. Things that communicate, I've done this before and I can do it again. Here are the examples of bullet points. Here's a bad one. Handled various operational duties over 5 years. What does that even mean? That's vague. That's risky. Here's a better bullet point. Cut operating costs by 15% Q2 2024 by streamlining vendor contracts, then providing some details about the vendor or the contracts. Now I know what you did, the impact you had, and that you can probably do it for me. If your resume makes you look like a safe pair of hands, you're already ahead of most candidates. But even if you're safe, the language you're using is making you look junior, and that's the next mistake. Secret number 2, explain risk on the page, not in the interview. Let me tell you what recruiters never do. They never stop to investigate a vague resume. Before you complain, well, recruiters are lazy. They're not. Imagine you have to get through 200 resumes in a day, and on top of that, all the calls and all the meetings you have. They're not lazy, they're short on time. So if something in your resume is vague or raises questions like a gap, a pivot, a short stint, or a weird transition, and you don't explain it, we're gonna make up our own story. Most people think that being vague makes them look safer. Like, if I don't mention it, they won't notice. But in recruiting, silence equals risk, because when a resume is unclear, it's gonna slow me down. And when I'm screening this many, I don't have time for confusion. So here's the shift. Your resume should briefly explain the risky stuff up front. If you took time off to care for a parent, say so in the summary. If you left a job after 3 months, give a one-line reason in your work experience. You don't need to overshare, you just need to make recruiters understand what happened. Here's a bad example. Operations manager, March 2022 to May 2022. No context, no explanation. Here's a better bullet point. Operations manager, March 2022 to May 2022. Position impacted by departmental reorganization, seeking a role with long-term growth. Now I understand. Now you feel safe. And if you have a gap like a career break, January 2023 to June 2023, family caregiving responsibilities, now available full-time, that's simple, clear, with no mystery. If you don't explain your story, someone else will, and they'll get it wrong. But even when your story is clear, the language you use to tell it still matters. That's what we'll get into next. Secret number 3, transferable skills are useless without translation. You know you can do the job. You've got the skills, the experience, the results. But if you're applying outside of your current industry or you're shifting roles, here's the problem. Recruiters don't read your resume to decode your potential. They read it to look for signals that they already recognize. So even if your experience technically fits and you're not using the right language, you won't get considered. So here's the fix. Every bullet needs to translate your past experience into their business priorities. That means scanning the job description and mirroring their verbiage, so you sound like someone who's already in their world and in that role. So here's some examples. Here's a bad one. Led weekly ops syncs to resolve escalations between regional managers. This sounds really internal. It's very jargony and has no context. Here's a better one. Resolved high priority operational issues across 12 markets, reducing delay time by 30% and improving team delivery scores by 12%. Now you sound like someone who drives outcomes, not someone stuck in internal meetings. If the right person reads the wrong words, it doesn't matter how good you are. And even if you do use the right language, your resume might still look interchangeable. That's the next mistake. If you're enjoying this video, go ahead and give it a like. And if you want to learn more recruiter secrets, go ahead and click subscribe. Secret number 4, the words you use define how senior you look. When recruiters skim your resume, and we do skim, the first thing we see are the job titles and the first word of every bullet. And that first word tells us a lot about how senior you are. If your bullets start with helped, supported, or worked on, you're signaling that you weren't leading. Even if you were qualified, even if you were running the show, that language makes you sound like a passenger. So here's the fix. Lead with verbs that show ownership, like led, spearheaded, drove, launched, or owned. These words don't just change the tone, they change how we perceive your entire career level. Here are some examples. Here's a bad one. Worked on a migration project for internal tools. Tools for what? What do those tools even do? I have no context. I don't know what you did, what happened, or what was the point. Here's a better one. Led migration of internal tools to cloud, cutting infrastructure costs by 25%. Now I know what you did and what you delivered. Now, an even better example was if you would provide additional context around the point of the project and who it helped. The verbs you use are shaping your perceived seniority. Fix that and your resume immediately feels stronger. But even with strong verbs that show ownership, if you only demonstrate one type of value, you're still missing something. And that's what we'll cover next. Secret number 5, your resume isn't a life story, it's a signal. You scroll through your resume and it's job after job, bullet after bullet, going back 10, 15, maybe even 25 years. It looks complete. It shows everything you've done and what you're proud of, and you should be proud of. But here's the truth. Recruiters don't need to know your life story. We're scanning for signals that you can solve our hiring managers' problems that they're having today. So when your resume gives equal weight to a job from 2023 and one from 2004, it all starts to blur. Most people think that showing everything makes them look experienced, but all it really does is bury what's most relevant for the job. So here's the shift. Your resume should really highlight the last 5 to 7 years. That's your proving ground. That's where your story needs to be sharp. So cut down your older work experience to maybe 2 to 3 relevant bullet points. Again, only if it reinforces what you're doing now and that applies to the job. Your resume isn't a timeline, it's a signal. And if there's too much noise, the right signals don't get through. Now, even when your signals are clear and recent, they need to show range. Let me explain. Secret number 6, resumes need more than one kind of strength. You might have the skills, the results, the leadership, but if your resume only shows one type of strength, you don't look complete. And that's the trap, because you're missing something, because you're only showing one side of yourself. If your resume leans too technical, you look like a builder without direction. Too strategic, and you sound like fluff. We wonder if you can actually roll up your sleeves and get the job done. The best resumes balance these 3 things: technical credibility, business impact, and leadership. This applies to all jobs. Here's a bad example. Senior engineer, developed an internal reporting tool in Python. I don't know what your focus, your value, or your outcome was. Here's a better one. Senior engineer, built $200 million product line by translating research into scalable platforms. Developed Python-based tool used by 900 plus engineers, saving $2 million annually. That's range, clarity, and impact on one line. When you pair clarity with substance, that's when you get interviews. You just turned your resume into something that actually shows that you can deliver. Now, the next battle isn't on paper, it's in the interview. And in this video, I'll show you the 8 unspoken recruiter signals that can make